Our next speaker is in the same vein. He's going to be talking about sustainable agriculture. He and his wife have been involved in organic agriculture for over 30 years. They've created two companies, Frankferd Farmers Milling and Frankferd Farms Foods, which is an organic food distribution company that serves 5 states with 4,000 agricultural products. So I just love his last name, or his full name. My aspiration is to become a boxing title announcer, so I have to use that voice to try it out. So please welcome T. Lyle Ferderber.
Thanks, Paul. Actually, our last name, translated in German, supposedly means the destroyer or the destroyed one or the corrupter or the corrupted one. I think I'm trying to live down my name. I was fortunate enough to find an ag census from 1850, so a few of these slides will show some of the things that were grown then. We are gathered here and tasked to create and inspire practical and visionary solutions and improvements to our county and region. Agriculture has been a bedrock of Butler County for 170 years, as evidenced by the 1850 census there, and it still is. Ag is changing, and we want to focus on the opportunity for positive changes. I grew up on a farm, married Betty, started a family. We began farming full-time, selling hay, boarding horses, and turning our little flour mill into a viable business and selling grain and flour to various places in Pittsburgh. 33 years ago, at the birth of our daughter, and we always say it takes a business to raise a kid, we lost our biggest customer that was a food warehouse, and we kind of picked up from that place and moved on. That has given us the experience to be to the place where we are now, where we do business in 5 states with 4,000 items, and we embrace as many regional and local products, often supplying them some of the parts to make the products and then reselling those products to people along the way. So looking at these charts, we see what agriculture looked like many years ago. On this chart, you can see that we had 3,700 farms in Butler County then. Today, we have 1,100. We had 17,000 cows and over 10,000 horses and mules, and now we have 13,000. There were tens of thousands of sheep in the county, tens of thousands. And now they're not even counted in the most recent agricultural census. There were 27,000 pigs in the county. They're also hardly counted in today's ag census. Farmers then track things like cheese, milk, eggs, and there were regular crops like corn, oats, wheat, rye. Crops like buckwheat. People grew orchards then, and these are things that were tracked then, as well as butter and cheese made on farms. In addition, they even counted the amount of hay, clover seed, grass seed, products like hops, and even hemp grown back then. And I didn't even know flax could be grown in the county. It was, and it was grown for fiber, I'm sure. Basically, Butler County was a self-sufficient county, rich in agriculture, and it's a heritage that we should embrace and be proud of. So today, if we look at a census of agriculture, there's some big differences. Our average farmer is 56 years old. In the country, they're 58. We have 2/3 of our farmers in Pennsylvania are over 65. We have 5% less farms than we did in 2007, and they're 5% larger. And they gain 37% more in value. But let's not be kidded by that. The value that we have, to understand that 37% more farm income, our farms are also getting 75% more government payments. And they're getting government payments for the top subsidized crops, 2 of which are corn and soy. Our Butler County average farm wage is lower than the state's, $25,000 compared to $35,000. So Butler County has agriculture, and it has agricultural challenges. So what's wrong with Butler County agriculture and agriculture nationally? I use these 2 pictures as a metaphor and literal. On the left is a central Pennsylvania cornfield. On the right is a Clinton Township soybean field, several of them that I saw on one of my bike rides. So using them as a metaphor of what's wrong with agriculture, these are two of the top GMO crops and two of the top subsidized crops. Corn is the most subsidized, soy is the fourth subsidized. And they're grown for animal feed for cows, and cows aren't supposed to eat corn or soy or eat very little. They're grass-fed animals that are fed improperly, and that drives the overproduction of corn and soy. The top 5 GMO crops are corn, soy, sugar beet, cotton, and canola. And 90 to 95% of corn and soy crops are GMO seeds. And whether you don't like GMOs, you don't like herbicide use, or even the business model where Monsanto has you buy their seeds and apply their chemicals, this is a metaphor literally of what could be seen as wrong with today's agriculture. And it's right here in Butler County. So Iowa State made these 2 slides to show us what happens to the soybeans and corn. These 2 slides will show that they make fiber, fuel, feed, alcohol, sweeteners, syrups, starches. And this fractionated agriculture, this fractionated food production leads to many of the food problems that we have today and leads to the sickness that we have in our health. So, what can we do here in Butler County? Some of the things that I'll suggest are things that we've done and things that we could do. The food pyramid starts with farms. The food goes to a processor. The processor sells it to a wholesaler. The wholesaler sells it to a store, and the consumer eventually buys it. This model, which is the most used, has many problems throughout, and that could be a whole other presentation. But any improvements along that way carries that improvement up the chain. Value adding is something that we learned early on, and that's taking a raw material and turning it into an additionally valuable crop. We did that with our grains and our flour mill. Our county has challenges. One of the challenges we have, as with the loss of freedmen's, we are developing food deserts in our county, and we have a lack of farming diversity in the crops that we raise. So one of the tasks of a meeting like this is to try to improve those things, to see if we can have farmers be involved in feeding more people in creative ways and with different and better crops. How many people remember moonlight mushrooms? I always swore that Saxonburg Hotel had a secret underground tunnel so they could pick the freshest mushrooms and serve them to you. So Western Pennsylvania has lost its mushroom production. As we see on the left, we see compost being made, and the right is a Kennett Square, Chester County mushroom facility. Besides the benefits to consumers, there's great benefits to the farmers. Farmers around here sold tons and truckloads of hay and raw materials to create that compost, and when it was used, that was then sold to consumers in the form of gardeners, farmers, and landscapers for use on their gardens and property afterwards. We've lost that, and there's no reason why Eastern PA should get all the mushrooms. Potatoes were another big crop in Butler County. They still are, but we have the opportunity to add value and to create more business with these crops. Pictured on the left is a small-scale potato chip manufacturer that we just started dealing with in Ohio. They use regional potatoes grown in the area and non-GMO oil. And a farm on the right is a Somerset County farm that raises vegetables and potatoes. We can grow them here, but we can also add value and process them here too. There's no reason why we can't do that here. Troyer Farms in northern Pennsylvania has 1,000 acres of potatoes that feed their potato chip factory up there. Why not in this area? And why this is an opportunity for county officials to get together with other counties and look for ways to bring this kind of business back to Pennsylvania, or back to this area especially. What about new crops? Pennsylvania recently passed legislation to allow for hemp cultivation. Pictured on the left is, and on the right, is a farm in northern Pennsylvania that is growing hemp, and they're growing it on the left and harvesting it on the right. There were 25 counties that were given the okay to raise projects of hemp. Butler County wasn't one of them. We could change that. What do you do with hemp? Simple things like fiber to create industrial rope and fabric. But people eat it too. The farm that I showed you raising hemp there has one of Pennsylvania's first oil presses. On the left, you see products that they've made from hemp oil to hemp hearts and blends of hemp oil. And on the right, you can see that hemp can be blended into nut butters, can be added to mustards and jams. That's an Eastern Pennsylvania company that we know of and that we buy their products. On the left is the same Northern Pennsylvania farm combining something that hasn't been grown in this area until very recently. That's canola, which is part of the rapeseed. That's a rapeseed, actually. And canola is part of the cabbage family. Usually farmers that have wild radish and wild mustard curse it as a weed, but in this case we see it being harvested, you know, a version of it, a cousin of it, to create oil seeds and for oil production. The same farms in that northern area raise sunflowers too. What do you do with them? How do you add value to them? On the left is the seed and other grains being put into storage for processing, and as you can see on the right, those are finished oils that have been pressed from Pennsylvania-grown canola, hemp, and sunflower. So what can a community do to stimulate the growth of new crops and to embrace value adding as a way to keep more jobs, keep the crop, and keep more money in the community? Pictured here are some pictures, that was redundant, of AceNet in Ohio. AceNet is an acronym, and AceNet is a test kitchen, of a small-scale commercial-sized test kitchen in Athens, Ohio, that is both a bakery and a cannery and food processing facility where a person with a crop can go in, process the crop, walk out with jars of jellies, jams, sauces, salsas, and things like that. They are funded with USDA, state, and local monies. We deal with a bakery down there. We take them flour nearly weekly and bring back their products and resell their products. So some people choose to stay at a facility like that and keep it. We also sell a line of products that was started in that facility, got so big that they created their own facility moving 10 miles out of town. They make a range of salsas. Small shameless plug here. And I bring this up for a reason. On the left is our stone flour mill, and on the right is a picture of the interior of Zanella Milling. But I bring up something that's missing in Butler County agriculture that used to be here. We have lost our feed mills. We have a growing number of small-scale animal agriculture, but we've lost our feed mills. Feed mills like Knopf Feed Mill in Harmony. Our friends the Ginters in Saxonburg had a feed mill, and also in Saxonburg was Agway. And I can remember as a kid going there and taking products and getting feed ground. And though these places now still sell feed, the feeds they're selling are made elsewhere. And we can bring that back to Butler County. We have the grain. A feed mill setup is relatively inexpensive, and we can be selling Butler County grains to Butler County farmers. All this talking is making me thirsty for beer parts. On the left is Sunny Bray Hop Farm in Carlisle. They are a recent business, and they're a supplier of hops to one company, Victory Brewing. And on the right is something that Butler County should be proud of. I think it's a Connoquenessing school, but I'm not sure. It's one of the schools that was sold by Butler Township or the Butler School District, and a Pennsylvania company has moved in there, turning a nonprofit, tax-free piece of ground into a taxable ground. And it's the CNC Malting Company has bought the business and is setting up their Pennsylvania malting system there. And Pennsylvania and Butler County should be proud of the fine breweries that are here that are looking for sources like hops and malt for their brews. An overlooked part of Pennsylvania agriculture and Butler County agriculture is the woodlots that we have. When I looked at an ag census, I only found a couple of registered places that were registered as sawmills. On the left is a picture of the Jones Sawmill in Sarver, and on the right is, I think it's the Penn Forest Products. It's located in Butler, but I think they're more lumbering than they are sawmills. The next slide shows what you can do to wood once it's cut. And again, we can do this in Butler County. This is AceNet, that same business incubator down in Athens, Ohio. These are pictures of their wood shop that is small-scale industrial that allows people to come in there with wood, some of it harvested locally, to turn it into viable and usable and sellable products. I bring up vegetables because vegetable production is challenged. It's challenged everywhere, and especially in Butler County. In discussing the subject of vegetable growing, I talked to both Art King and Joe Bozelli, both of whom are farm owners, Five Elements Farm and Harvest Valley Farms. And they both mentioned the fact that U.S. agriculture is heavily subsidized and vegetables aren't part of that. The vegetable farmers struggled to get the U.S. government to subsidize the hoop houses that you see there at Harvest Valley Farms that extend the season earlier and later for farmers. This gives value adding to the farmer and allows us to have fresh vegetables earlier in the season and later in the season. One of the things that happened in the world of food production is you lose food production producers, value-added people, you lose the farmers that raise the vegetables. I think we may all remember the Paul Myers Pickle Farm in Sarver that raises large amounts of vegetables for processing that no longer does that. Another shameless plug, thank you, Hal. The solar panels on the left fuel our flour mill, and on the right, the same Susquehanna mills, the same people that have the oil press, began their business by collecting biodiesel. These are possibilities for farmers to enhance their on-farm energy production, whether by creating their own oil seeds and pressing them, or by using local restaurants' oil seeds. So as we talk about the change in agriculture, we also want to see some things that we want to avoid. On the left is a Pennsylvania broiler house, and on the right is a hard-to-read diagram of a Wisconsin 4,000 cow dairy farm. Some of the problems with that dairy farm are the manure lagoons, the fact that these cows never see the light of day, and manure lagoons are in the news because when the hurricane hit the Carolinas, it spread that filth throughout the flooded areas, and these are some of the things that we need to avoid as we change and grow agriculture in our county. Another one of the challenges that we face are inappropriate subsidies. We were talking about those subsidies that farmers that grow vegetables don't seem to get, but the people that grow corn and soybeans do seem to get them. That was a pile of corn that was too big to fit. Overproduction of dairy and corn are two of our state's problems. So what does a community do that has food deserts, that has poverty or below average wages? Well, Allegheny County, these pictures are from Allegheny County community gardens that were created for people to farm and raise their own food. Not only do we have to look to farmers to change the way we as consumers can become growers, we can become creators and not just consumers. And these are examples of what have been done in communities to allow people to stand on their own 2 feet, to raise themselves up by raising some of their own food, even if they don't have the land to do it. Part of the food system involves education. We have strong educational institutions in this county, one of them being Butler County Community College that we're at. But when I looked over the syllabus, one of the things I noticed was there are no food or ag-related course studies. As we try to create and raise the diversity and level of food production in our county, that needs to be matched with government cooperation and support and educational support. There are degrees that you can get, associate degrees and certifications that you get in various aspects of food handling and food production. And these are things that leaders here should consider adding to the range of things that young people and unemployed people can be trained to embrace. PSU has lots of degrees in various things, both certificate and associate degrees. And let's remember, in Butler County, 25% of our residents pay 50% of their income for rent. That's a poverty indicator. Child abuse in this county has doubled in 2 years, from 14 to 16. Rural suicide rates are 50% higher than urban suicide rates, and rural suicide rates have raised 25%. So you can't just talk about food, you have to include food in considerations in community, and the independence and strong rural communities will lower those kinds of numbers, and this is a challenge for leadership that we elect and that are appointed. So let's remember that when we look at numbers for Butler County, some of the numbers are skewed by Cranberry. They raise the income level and the education level when you look at averages, but we know that there are pockets of places in the county that need help, and food self-sufficiency at the consumer level and new ag will help that. So even as ag is a major Butler County economic driver with some variety, we need to reimagine ag's role to preserve and expand the importance of farming and all the benefits that derive therefrom. We need all sectors of agriculture to be involved, from consumers to farmers to businesses to educational institutions to elected officials and government educational officials and nonprofits. Whether choosing a local farm market or CSA or locally made products such as Mama Rosa's products back here today, consumers can vote with their dollars, pushing farmers to vary and create new businesses with positive economic impact. When government, industry, nonprofits, and education team up with consumers and farmers, we can indeed reimagine Butler County agriculture. Thank you.